Hello and welcome to this week's No Access Required. So, Sony outage? Xbox outage? Are both these AAA games companies battling hackers or internal server issues? I'm sure they'd prefer you to believe it was internal server issues, but we may never find out the truth. Isn't it curious to you that these outages that both Xbox and Sony are experiencing are happening kind of intermittently around about the same time? And this brings me to a potentiality. One that I'm sure I'm not the only person who may have thought of this. So certain elements of the gaming community are unhappy with this Sony announcement that they've just decided to discontinue production of all physical games. There will be no more game discs. It will be a brave new world, a digital-only future, where the various games companies that we all rely on control their ecosystems and the pricing therein with an iron fist, free from any competition, which is the last bulwark against unfettered corporate tyranny. So certain individuals have decided to organise a protest, a blackout of Sony, which will last 1 week. And as soon as I heard this, I thought of two things. One was good for you. And the second was, you don't tell your enemy your plans, because they will just mitigate against those plans. If you say that there's going to be a blackout for 1 week, then the business will just absorb those plans. And it will minimise any significant impact. The trick here would be to announce 1 week of protests by not logging in or playing any PlayStation games, and then say that this is the first of an escalating program of action. That is the kind of thing the Sony business will not be able to absorb. It will have meaningful effects. It will have a meaningful impact on the business. And it will send a message to Sony that whereas it is indeed in charge of its own decision making, it relies on us, the consumer, to survive. And by this relationship, there must be a necessary meeting in the middle. And that meeting in the middle has been sadly lacking for a couple of decades now. And so here we have the problem which has led here today. Sony, PlayStation and other giant corporations have reduced the role of their once powerful consumers, the people like me and you, to a role of dependence, suckling on the teat of AAA gaming. And that role reversal has put us where we are today. CEOs recognised that they could flip the script, and the mechanism for this? Monetization, loot boxes, surprise mechanics. They can call it whatever they want, but we started to recognise this recently as abuse. Specifically the financial abuse of its customers. And as they realised, these AAA games companies, that we would pay and continue to pay, well, not all of us, but some, that the more they monetised, the less powerful we became. And so some gamers have had enough. And it's my suspicion, however wildly inaccurate it might be, and I will say that this is entirely speculation at this point at least, that these outages might in fact be direct action. That these outages have been created to illustrate to the gaming communities, those that have bought digital copies mostly out of convenience, it has to be said, that if these large companies suffer technical issues, everything that you've bought and paid for can become irrelevant, unplayable. And yet there are those of us here with beards long enough who remember a time when this wasn't a thing. You had a disc that you had paid for, a disc that you could take from the store to your house, open the box, pop a disc into your games console, and you could play it. And the internet could burn down all around you, and it wouldn't matter. And I can tell you now, I miss those days. Halcyon days. Simpler days. Or is it just internal technical issues that both Xbox and Sony have been experiencing. We've known for some time now that there are all kinds of problems that can occur with these consoles and the various infrastructures that they drag around with them. And it's a good thing in many ways that we're having these outages, because it's illustrative that a digital-only future is highly problematic. And for many, many, many people, absolutely unwelcome. But let's say for a moment that this is direct action, that some intrepid people have indeed interfered with the various systems of Sony and Xbox. Then I have to say, from my position at least, it's a masterstroke. Because it shows us clearly the problems that will occur in a digital-only future. And that a return to physical game copies is absolutely needed here. We need to go back to a time when you could do as I just said. Buy a copy of a game, be it physical, disc or digital, and have that product that's being sold to you fully self-contained. Built in such a way that it doesn't require any outside validation or verification. So let's revisit the possibility that what if these outages aren't direct action? And I have to say, even though I do really like the idea that there are people out there who are creating these issues for Sony and Xbox in order to illustrate that a digital-only future has many problems, I believe it's just more possible that there have been technical issues behind the scenes, and that Sony and Xbox, despite their AAA status and their gargantuan size, can't get their shit together in order to keep their infrastructure up and running. That is just more likely. And let's say that is the case. Then, in many, many ways, this is more perfect for the death of a digital future than any direct action could in fact be, because it means Xbox and PlayStation did this to themselves. And if they did do it to themselves, then how exquisitely perfect. And the timing, if it was an accident, was bang on. I've said it before and I will say it again. Consumers globally must take back their power. Because when taken in the round in the larger context of the world we're currently living in and the world we're going to be living in, this is about much more than just buying games. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Do like, subscribe and share. It really would help the channel. And until next time, bye bye.